We're going to get started right now. Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of Rahat Code. It's the very first episode of 2020. I'm just tweeting this out right now. Check out the first episode of 2020 live now. Oh, and this is a brand new addition to the stream. This wonderful Keychron mechanical keyboard. My wife wouldn't let me get the blue keys for obvious reasons. But I got the middle ones, and they still make the nice clicky clacky sound. That's what I love. Probably sound very intelligent saying clicky clacky, but yeah, it's awesome. Cool. So, what are we doing today? Today, we're going to be building a small React application, and we're going to be doing this from scratch using Babel. It's going to be really small. What we're going to do is render 3 buttons on the page. The buttons all correspond to a Pokemon: Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle. When you click on one of these buttons, a counter will be added to that specific Pokemon. So basically, we're just seeing which one's the most popular. Anyway, so a couple days ago, someone at work actually shared this article, and it was amazing. It was all about creating a React app from scratch with Babel. I'm going to share this link when I upload this up to YouTube. So if you want to read along here, follow along on the video, I'm basically going to be following more or less the same thing he goes through in this um, blog post. So really awesome. Definitely check this out. All right, let's get started. So I'm in this directory. It's my projects directory. Nothing special. I'm going to make a folder for this. Let's call it I don't know, Pokédex. Eventually, I think I kind of want to make this into like a Pokédex. We'll add like Express on the back end and hit like the Pokemon API, and we'll see about making a Pokédex. So CD into Pokédex. And what would be really awesome is if I could get some type of speech synthesis and make it sound like Dexter from the original Pokédex voice. I don't know if it was called Dexter or not. I just called it Dexter, so we'll just assume it's Dexter. I'm pretty sure Ash called it Dexter at some point. If you've never watched Pokemon, you should go watch Pokemon. Um, cool. So let's run Pokédex, and all right, let's see what our friend says to do in here. I'm gonna make this simple on myself. I'm gonna do npm init -y just so we get a package JSON file, and I'm gonna open this up in code. Okay, let's go to this. Please excuse my very poorly organized desktop. All right, great. Now it's hidden. All right, so we've got our code set up. So let's make a couple more folders. All right, first folder is going to be source. Next folder is going to be dist. So what are these folders for? Source is going to have basically where we write all of our code, and in dist, and all the code that we write is going to get compiled and built and will be sent to that dist folder. So in production, we run everything from dist, and we can also do it from development too. Doesn't matter, but basically that dist file is the built production ready code that we would deploy. So next order of business, let's create a .gitignore. I will be putting this up on GitHub, so there's a bunch of things I don't want in there. First, the dist folder. Demo, and they build it, they get a fresh, clean build. And we're going to get rid of node modules because everyone should just yarn add or npm install whenever they grab this. Cool. And that's all we need. I'm going to keep it small. If you're following along like directly with what the blog post is, the person actually just makes the folders and then creates a package JSON. I like doing it this way. Cool. So we're just gonna make sure our code is running for now. So in source, we're gonna create an index.js, and let's just write in some code. We'll do this const greet equals and take a name. It's gonna console log that name. I'm gonna say welcome to Rahat codes. All right, I'm typing too much. Hello. Let's keep it simple. Hello. Name. Wonderful. And then we're gonna run greet, and we're gonna say John Snow. You know nothing. That's probably a terrible British accent. I'll never do it again. I'm sorry. Okay, cool. I usually don't like using this terminal, but I guess to make our lives a little easier, we can do it. I like using iTerm. It just feels nicer to me. It's completely a personal preference. So let's just make sure this code runs. We're going to go node source slash index.js. Ooh, what happened here? Console. Console. There we go. And now we get our hello, Jon Snow. I don't even know what that was. I'm sorry. Great. So we have some code. Let us install Babel. So what does Babel do? I'm gonna pull up this Babel transpiler thing. What is it? Babel. What's it called? I forgot what it's called. Babel transpiler website, maybe. Compiler. Compiler, not transpiler. All right. So you can go to this site and play around with Babel. So it's babeljs.io. Head over to try it out. And what you can do here, write some code on this side. So we're going to write some ES6. It's just going to be like, well, I don't know, const me equals Rahat. I can't even spell my own name. Rahat. Actually, you know what? We have some ES6 already written. Let's copy and paste. Oh, what did I do? No. I don't even know what that was. Did I paste it in there? Okay, cool. So on the left side, we see, let me zoom in a little bit. On the left side, we see my ES6 that was written, const greet name, it's an arrow function, console log some stuff, and then we run it. And on this side, we see that it got converted over into pre-ES6 JavaScript. So what Babel basically does is takes your modern JavaScript and compiles it down to JavaScript that older browsers can understand. So if you need to make sure, you're supporting Internet Explorer, which, we have to do it sometimes. The Babel is something that would help you do that while still writing awesome new modern code. Cool. So that's Babel, the playground. You can play around with that. It's really cool to kind of see like the differences between some of the modern stuff you write and how it can be written to be cross compatible with other browsers. We're going to npm install dash dev. This will save it as a dev dependency so that when we deploy it, we don't have to like have all these extra dependencies that we don't need in production. And it's going to be at Babel core and at Babel CLI. So it's going to install the Babel stuff for us and install. Yeah. I'm just like getting random ideas around what I'm doing with the Pokedex. Like, if I could, I think like Google has some APIs for like I can't speak. Speech synthesis. I wonder if I could like have that be kind of like an actual Pokedex. Like you look up some Pokemon, and just like in the TV show, it like tells you stuff, you know, of like what this Pokemon is. That would be cool. I think I'm gonna do that. Release it as like a mobile app. Yeah, React Native. All right, so I'm gonna do that in React Native. Awesome little side project because I don't have enough of those. Um, cool. So we installed some stuff. So we're gonna go into our node modules where we installed. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this in here. This command basically it's going into your node modules and running the bin for Babel. Um, Basically, we're just running Babel on our code, and it's gonna take everything in our source and output that into our dist. So you'll see it's going into source and outputting into the directory that says dist. So let's run that and see what happens. Da, 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 da. Cool. Successfully compiled one file with Babel. Great. Yeah, we only wrote one file. So going to dist. Hey, there's an index.js in there too. And it looks exactly the same. The reason for that is we didn't really tell Babel what to do. Babel needs to be configured and be told what to do. It doesn't just like know, like, what do you want me to do? All we basically told it to do was just copy a folder and put it somewhere else. To start configuring Babel, we need we should install another thing. So I'm going to do npm I. I don't feel like I'm writing install every single time. / save -dev at Babel preset env. Go. So this is what's gonna let us actually do some cool stuff. Now, while that's happening, we're also going to create a .browser list RC file. I recently found out that this is in like I think this is in like the package.json file of a Create React app. Basically, this lets you know what browsers you're going to be supporting. So we're just going to create a file in our, I think that went into source. Okay. Wait, is it going in? Don't go into dist. I need it in the outside. There we go. See me struggle with VS Code. I need to like actually learn some of the shortcuts and stuff. Probably make my life a lot easier. Browsers list RC. Make sure I spelled that right. Browsers, right? Not browser. Yeah, browsers. Great. So, what are we doing here? This is basically going to be all the browsers that we support. Last two versions, basically, we're going to support the latest two versions. We're going to make sure we support everything that's not dead. This is an interesting way of configuring things. No dead browsers. And greater than 0.5%. I believe that's like greater than 0.5% overall usage. I could be wrong, but I think that's correct. I'll verify after, and I'll tweet that I was wrong if I was wrong, but I'm probably wrong. Anyway, I'm pretty sure our friend actually yeah, I was kind of right. So basically this 0.5% means that any browsers that have more than that level of market share on the internet, I guess, of usage. Cool. So let's run Babel again. This time, definitely not going to copy and paste this. Let's run this. Again, I'm using that initial blog post that I showed at the beginning, which will be in the link when this is a YouTube video. So if you're confused about where I'm getting this, that's where I'm getting it from. So if you're following along with this later and just want to like look at everything and understand more, I'll put that in as like a resource. So let's go back to our gist folder. Hey, it looks different. It's going to use strict. We're using var instead of const, or I'm not going to get into that debate. Um, cool. So this is older, less modern JavaScript. Nice. All right. So we haven't done anything too cool yet. I mean, I think it's cool. I don't know about you guys. I don't know about you all, but yeah. Let's see. Now we don't want to keep having to like do a huge amount of that giant like little script that I run every time. So we're gonna write our little Babel config. Um, so in Babel config, we have some presets. And this is in the blog in that blog post, but you can also like go through the Babel documentation to like learn more about what these presets are. We're gonna do some plugins and stuff too, so all of that is in there. This is all this stuff is like set up for you when you do a Create React app. So we're just like doing the hard work that Create React app does for us because it's fun to know things. Right. Babel preset env. Great. All right. We're going to have a thing for our plugins. And we're going to export. Wait, no. We're not using modules. I've used module.export exports equals, and then we just have an object of like our presets and our plugins to make sure that these are accessible outside of this file. Babel like kind of detects this stuff automatically. Cool. We can also add this debug true. Help us with some debugging. What's good? What's going on? Hello? What did I do wrong? Oh, I know what I did wrong. I know what I did wrong. It's supposed to be in here. It's got to be an object because we have to pass like a configuration object into this thing. And now debug is true. There we go. No more syntax errors. Wonderful. So now when we run well, we don't have to run the whole thing. Backspace, backspace. Okay, cool. Now we can run a smaller version of that script. We don't need like that preset env because it'll be automatically detected. And we get like a bunch of extra. These are like the plugins that were used. I think Babel like detects based on like your browser list what all it needs to do. So I guess it's like based on our browser list. These are everything that Babel ran. Cool. All right. So now we need some polyfills. So I think we need polyfills because there are like a lot of like the modern language we used is like transpiled into um, the older version of, I guess, older syntax of JavaScript, but some functionality doesn't. Cool. So we're going to install npm I dash dash save core.js. We can go into our index.js, import it at the top. Ooh, what am I doing? What is wrong with me today? Import, and we can actually use import in this file because Babel is looking at everything and saying, "Oh, he's writing an import. Let me make that into a require." Yeah. So we're just going to import core.js slash stable. Make sure we have stable version of core. Cool. And that's all we need to do. And it'll do all the polyfills that are necessary for us. Actually, we need to go into our Babel config, and after debug is true, we need to add some more keys. We're going to use built-ins for usage. And what that basically does is it configures the way Babel handles like all our polyfills. So it's basically just to have like make sure Babel uses the right polyfills from core. And core JS is 3. It's just the core JS version that we're using. You can probably go through the core JS docs and see some more stuff about that. Cool. All right. Wonderful. So this, so in the, I think we're going to skip over a couple things that are in the blog post. He goes into showing like how promises work with this polyfill. Okay, cool. Now we're about to get to the spicy part. We're gonna add a Webpack into this. So what does Webpack do? Webpack is a bundler. It takes like your JavaScript files, your React components, all the HTML in there that you have, your CSS, everything, and bundles it together into basically your app. When you use a Create React app, that's already happening in the background. I did a introduction to React webinar in the summer, and I used Parcel there. So Parcel is like another bundler you can use that requires much less configuration. Um, that's really good for like, I guess, if you don't want to like use all of Create React apps configurations and you still want to kind of like go on your own. Parcel just kind of works really well right out the box. And then you can still like configure and add stuff on top of it. And if you wanted to like configure Create React app, I think you'd have to like eject from it and do a bunch of other stuff. So that's just another way of bundling all of your files together. But today we're going to use Webpack. So let's, and I'm, okay, I did core. So let us npm install dash dash save dash dev, and we want Webpack. I really need to learn how to spell. And Webpack CLI. This is going to let us use all our Webpack stuff, and we have to write yet another configuration file because everything needs to be configured. So This one, surprise, surprise, is going to be called webpack.config.js. Did I spell? Yeah, I spelled it. Hey, got a nice little Webpack icon in there. Awesome. So here, we're going to need to do a couple things. This is like some boilerplate stuff. I'm not going to go through too much. We're going to need to use the path module. This is basically in Node. So we're not going to be using import statements. It's all going to be require. So const path equals required path. And it looks like we're saving the paths to our source and dist file in variables just because we're going to be, it looks like, using them quite a bit. So const yelling. So just picture me yelling. I don't feel like yelling right now. Const path source equals path dot join dash dash their name. Cool. Nice. It even this is why I like VS Code. It gives you like little snippets and info about the stuff that you're using, which is great. Dot slash source. So basically, from where we are right now, that's where our source folder is, and we want to do the same thing for our dist. Once again, pretend I'm yelling. If you laugh at my corny jokes, you're awesome. Dot slash dist. So same thing. All we're doing is just saving the path to both of these folders in variables so we can reference them really quickly whenever we need. And we're going to have to export out a object. This object is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger the more you configure, the more additions you make to Webpack. So module.exports equals, and let's see what we need to add. Now, some of you might be thinking, why doesn't he just copy and paste this? It's very good not to copy and paste, but to type everything out, especially when you're doing it for the first time and kind of learning it. When you're typing something out, when you're typing some code out, it just kind of sticks to you a little bit more. Mode, development. So what does this do? Basically, just Webpack optimizes, looks like it optimizes your environment for development. There's also, I guess, a production mode too. So we're just going to worry about development in our case. Now we need to specify the entry. Where do we enter our app? Path.join. Path source. Oy. And we go index.js. Cool. That's all we need there for now. What is the next key? We need an output. Output, of course, is going to be our dist file. So path is going to be our dist folder, I guess, dist directory, whatever you want to call it. It all means the same thing, more or less. File name, JS slash. So I'm going to explain this right after I type it. As from what based on my understanding from this blog post. Hash.js. Okay, cool. Add my comma and semicolon in there. All right. Let me lower this down a little bit. So what does this output thingy do? Basically, we're telling Webpack where we want our build to go to. Same kind of thing we did with Babel. We start in our source. end up in our dist. Our dist is where the production or like built version of our app actually goes into. Um, and the file name is basically, this is just going to be the naming scheme for the file name that it outputs. And once we build it, I'll be able to explain that a little bit better. I didn't quite understand it until I saw it. But it helps with like versioning, so it makes you so you understand like when you're running your code, are you using like an older version that's been cached, or are you using the latest, up to date version of whatever you built? Oh no, where did my instructions go? What happened? So I have like another screen that has the instructions for this, and they're gone. I do none of this from memory. I don't know who does this stuff from memory. Don't do that work from memory. So where's my create? There it is. Okay. Cool. Get back to where I was. It's quite a lot of stuff to do from memory. So, all right, down to the Webpack section. Cool. So we've got this set up so far. Let's add a script. About to do some fun stuff. We don't want to keep running like node to go into this, do that, da 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 da. So let's take this test script out. Testing is great. We're just not going to do it on this stream. But you should always test your stuff. Webpack --config webpack.config.js. Okay. So basically when you run npm run dev, some cool stuff is going to happen. What cool stuff is that? Let's find out. All right, let's clear this out. npm run dev. Basically, any script that you define in this package.json, you can do npm run and then the name of the script, and it'll run whatever you specified in there. So let's run that. Cool. All right, so did a bunch of stuff. So let's look at our dist file. Hey, we got our index, great. And we've got this JS main and then dot hash. That's like the hash thing that we specified in our Webpack config, this thing right here. So there's like a whole bunch of Webpack related things. And if you like keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, at some point you'll get to like the code you actually wrote. Somewhere down here. You know what? I'm going to do find greet. There it is. My greet function. Well, it was there. So it's in there. This is basically somewhere in there. You'll see like the code hasn't actually been transformed the way Babel actually transforms it. So we're going to fix that in a little bit. But for now, do something else. I'm going to take this stuff out of our index. I'm going to write, no, wrong index file. Make sure you're working in your source file. Well, not in our index. We're going to write a new file. So this file can pretty much do whatever you want. I'm going to follow basically what our friend did in the blog post. I'm going to create a sum file. And const sum is just going to take A and B, and it's going to return to you the sum of A and B. Cool. And we'll just console.log some random sum I don't know, 5 plus 4. Cool. So pretty sure that 5 plus 4 is 9. If my math is correct. Well, we don't want. We'll do that soon. I jumped ahead. So we defined our sum. We want to make sure that this sum is usable. This sum function is usable in other files. So we just export default sum. So let's go back into our index and import sum from sum. You can get by Jon Snow. And let's just console.log here the sum of 5 and 4. Let's run this again. npm run dev. Great. Let's just check that worked. Did. So now we have two files. One of them is like the original thing that we did where it just had our greet function in there somewhere. All right, let me find Jon Snow. Where's Jon Snow? There it is. Yeah. So it's like this really long thing, and eventually you get to our code. Let's look at the new file, see if our sum is in there. Sum, not sun. Yeah. Cool. Sum is in there. It's 5 plus 4 in there. Yeah. See, we're logging 5 plus 4. Cool. So this is creating like a new. We don't want to keep creating brand new bundled JavaScript files every single time. And we're going to take care of that, I believe, in just a second. But basically, now you can kind of see that like when you're building and importing JavaScript from a bunch of different files, what like is happening at the end is like everything is taken built into one like really long file with a bunch of things that no one understands. Well, someone understands it. I just know that it's Webpack stuff. Cool. So now what we're going to do is install a loader. So we have our Babel transformations kind of like configured. But right now we're just kind of using Webpack. We did all that Babel work and we're not even using it. So let's install a loader for Babel. Save dash dev Babel dash loader. And guess what? Whenever you install something like this, you gotta update your configuration. Luckily for us, some of this configuration is going to be very familiar. Let's get rid of this. We don't need this. We do need that. The rest of this stuff is unnecessary for now. Cool. So, not our Babel config. We actually need our Webpack config. Where is Webpack config? There it is. Cool. So, what we need to do here, after our output, we're going to add some modules. We got this module object. It's going to have some rules. Everything has rules. So out of the rules, yet another object. This, again, is boilerplate stuff. You can get it from like the Webpack documentation. Again, I'm following that blog post I shared. Hey, Ryan, thank you for joining. Okay, so some rules. We're going to, I think this part I'll probably just copy and paste. There's just a lot of stuff that I do not want to misspell, because if I misspell it, I'm gonna rip my hair out trying to figure out what I did wrong. This basically it lets us use our JavaScript files. We're going to exclude our node modules. We don't want to have that in there. And we're going to use the Babel loader. Okay. And now we need to pass in the options. The options are going to be very familiar. We did the same thing in our Babel config when we were using that. So options, how do I write this? Okay, options, and now presets. And these presets are the same ones we did in our Babel config. So can be at Babel / preset -env. And same thing with that object we had in there before. I'm going to copy this over. I wrote it once, I don't need to write it again. Here we go. Wonderful. Okay, great. So now Babel and Webpack should be working together. We can get rid of this Babel config. We don't need this anymore because now we have it in our Webpack config. And let's do npm run dev. Everything is running. Great. Cool. And we have yet another one of these build files. And you'll see use strict, yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. Everything's running. Babel's working together with it. The next part of the what does the browser list do? So browser list, basically it lets you define what browsers you want to support. So I'm just saying here the latest 2 versions, anything that's not dead, and anything that has more than 0.5% market share. And basically Babel will kind of look at this and know how to compile your like ES6 plus JavaScript into older JavaScript that's like compatible with those browsers. Whenever you create like a create React app, this is actually like defined. You can check it out in like the package.json. So that's how it knows like when you actually build it, those are the browsers that it supports. In our case, we just use this browser list RC file. So in the blog post, the next thing that they do is create like a production and production environment too. We're not going to worry about the production environment. So we're going to skip that part. But like I said, I will link that blog post in the when I upload this on YouTube. So if you want to go through that, it's perfectly fine. For our case, we can skip that. Let's see. Actually, maybe it's not too much. We can go ahead. I'll just copy this into here. So is this in the config? Yeah, it's in the config module.export. So now everything in here will go beyond a return. So let's return object, and we can just copy and paste all this stuff in here. That way we can do some stuff outside of it. That's it, right? Yeah. I think I went too far. Wait, where'd my return? There it goes. I need to find a better way to do that. Cool. So what's wrong with these? Uh, ooh, so this needs to be a function because we're returning an object. So it's going to take in an environment. I'm going to return an object. So in here, we can say const environment equals env.environment. Is production equals environment equals production, and then is development. If I can spell it. Equals development. Cool. So why did I do all this stuff? Let's find out. So the way you can kind of like tell Webpack to run like a environment or production build, you can pass in the environment flag equals production in here. Do I definitely have Webpack installed. Absolutely do. I don't? Really? Did I not install? I know I installed it. Okay. Well, that's not too important. That's how you can actually run, basically let Webpack know if it's an environment is in production or is in development. We're just going to define that in our script. Where's our package.json? So to build, it's going to be environment production. It's going to run the configuration for our Webpack, blah, blah, blah. And for dev, it's going to set the environment to development and pretty much do the same thing. Wait, don't do that. No. Okay, cool. All right. To create a production build, we run npm run build. Well, now it wants to run, but when I say Webpack, you don't want to run. And for development builds, you would do the same thing, npm run dev. Cool. So let's add some HTML. I'm going to do an index.html file. So currently, I'm going to have to get rid of some of these in a little bit. I'll get rid of those in a bit. So we've got our in source, we've got index.js, we've got our sum.js. Eventually, we're going to want to like deploy the dist directory to like a server. But first, we need like an index HTML, which will serve as like the entry point for the web app. So where can we put that? I did this before. Let me just reference that real quick. How did I do it before? What did I name it? Is another question. One of these is it. React Webpack. CD React Webpack. So because I did this before, I'm going to cheat a little bit and reference what I did prior. Okay. That was all in source. All right, so everything's in source. What I figured. So we're going to create an index.html file here. And I'm just going to copy this little boilerplate HTML. So right now we just have an HTML. We want to make sure that we're using one of the JavaScript files that was actually built. So we can once again configure that in our Webpack configuration. Let's see. I think I missed something from before. Did I miss something from before? Ooh. This is always in development. That's what I missed. Should be based on the environment now. Okay, that's what I missed. Yeah. Maybe that's why I wasn't working before. Okay, cool. So in our Webpack config, under path, we also need to grab this HTML. I don't think they're all in caps. HTML Webpack plugin. I'm just going to require HTML dash Webpack dash plugin. Great. And now in our plugins, which is somewhere down here. Or no, this is after the module. A module object. So after module, we have our plugins. So in here, we're going to make a new HTML Webpack plugin. And it's going to use a template. So that index, that HTML file that we created in our source is basically going to be a template for like the final HTML file that gets served into our dist folder. So template is path.join path source, which we defined earlier, is just the source to our, it's not the source to our, it's the path to our source. So it's just using that HTML file that we have as a template. Great. Wonderful. npm run build. Ooh, what happened? Webpack exit status 1. Module not found. Did I not install? I don't think I installed this, did I? Probably not. Definitely don't think I did. Wait, what am I doing? Not in there. Do I need to install it? Okay. No, that wasn't the problem. What did I miss? Yeah, this worked perfectly when I did this on my leisurely time. But of course, when I'm on camera, it doesn't want to work. Why? Why are you doing this? Not even sure what this error is. Code E lifecycle. Let me look this up. Let's see. Code E lifecycle. Is that? Saying, okay, this module not found is still happening. Okay, let's go through this a little bit. Cannot find module HTML Webpack plugin. Did I not just install that? Or is there something else I have to install? I did not install. Is this working? All right, it's taking some time, so I feel like that's working now. It wasn't taking all this time before, so it's probably what it is. Come on, go a little faster. Cool. And now let's run npm run build. No, more errors. What's going on? You know what? I probably spelled something wrong. It's always a spelling error. Let's do this. I'm going to copy and paste this thing. And then it's going to work. Even though I think I did it right. Or I think I did it right, but could be wrong. I think something changed. Yeah, I spelled something wrong. Yeah, I spelled something wrong. That's what it was. It's always a spelling error. There we go. Hey, so in our disk folder, we now have this index.html, and it references the JavaScript that we built. So we never have to actually specify that in a script. When we build our, when Webpack builds everything and bundles it all together, it's going to reference the new JavaScript file that has all the stuff that we wrote in it. So now what we want to do, so you'll notice we have lots and lots of built out and bundled JavaScript files. We want to clean that out sometimes, you know? So there's a plugin for that. Clean Webpack plugin. And surprise, we have to configure that once again in our Webpack config.js. This is why people use Create React App. For this reason. All right. So install correctly, yeah. I actually installed the thing this time before I wrote it in. Const. I'm gonna do structure out clean Webpack. You know what? I don't trust my spelling right now. So let's do it this way. Let's require. I think I can spell. I can spell this. Clean Webpack. Hey, I don't have to. VS Code did it for me. Great. And we gotta put that into our plugins over here. So we also need a new clean Webpack plugin. Just gonna run it. Okay. Cool. So now all of our, whenever we rebuild, it's gonna like remove our old bundles and make sure that we always have our new bundles. Now the fun part, this is my favorite part of this. Well, I guess my favorite part would be when we actually put React in here, but we're gonna install dev server. So this is gonna take care of like all the hot reloading stuff for us. So npm install -- save -dev webpack -dev -server. Okay, cool. So now we need to once again configure that. Let's see. So after our mode environment, we're going to put in our dev server. And so content base, so where's it going to pull all our content from? It's going to pull it from our dist file, our folder. The host is going to be localhost. And the port. What port is this going to run on? It's going to run on 8080. Cool. Do we need that? We'll put it in. History API fallback. It's true. This lets us use like the history API in React. We can kind of explore that a little bit later. Overlay. So this gives you like that nice gigantic overlay when something goes wrong with like everything you did wrong. It's going to give you your warnings, your errors, everything in there. Need some commas in here. Cool. Now we want to add some more npm scripts. One for our dev server. I'm just going to copy over the one I previously had. Okay. Cool. Now let's do npm run dev server. All right. Compiled successfully. Now let me bring over this thing, stick it in here. So that was localhost 8080. Haha, boilerplate. And just to, prove that works, let's just add something else in here, like in the body. Put in like an H1. Welcome to Rahat Code's live stream. So something just changed. You saw that recompile. Let's head over here. Hey, it's there. No, go back. Cool. So now we've got our live dev server refreshing every time we add something new to it. That's my second favorite part of this, just getting that set up. I always find that super cool. And now we get to the good part. Let's add React. So React, we're going to do two things. We're going to install React itself. Just save React. We're going to install React DOM. So React can be used in a couple different ways. React DOM is what you use to actually render or like and use React in the browser. There's also like React Native. There's like a React VR thing that I've been wanting to look at. I haven't had time to, but basically there's like different ways to use React code, and this is what we need to install to actually use it in the browser. There's a couple different ways to write React code. We can go through both really quickly. Let's see. So, index.js. So these are the two. I'm not going to save either of these, but two ways you can write React. You can write const element equals h1 hello world. Basically, it's kind of like HTML inside of JavaScript. It's called JSX. What that's actually like doing under the hood is it's saying const element equals React dot create element, and it's taking this h1. That's what we want to render. There's no children, so we're just gonna set that to null. And is that children? I think this is children. I don't remember the exact order of what these arguments are named, but basically, yeah, this is children. Yeah. Null. Okay, then what's null here is the props. So if we were like passing props, that's what would be there in place of null. So these are the two ways you write React. I don't know. I don't think anyone writes React like this. Everyone uses JSX. So we're just going to stick to JSX. Browsers don't actually understand JSX, but Babel can just compile that down to JSX for us. So let's install more stuff. Install Babel preset React. And once again, we go into our Webpack configuration to make sure that this works. The more I do this, the more I really, really appreciate Create React app. Super appreciate it. Where does this go? This goes in the presets for Babel. So after this thing here, we're just gonna add the thing we just installed, Babel preset React. Cool. Okay, so Babel is now ready to work with JSX. Let's actually add some JSX. Let's make some React stuff. So in our index, we don't need none of the stuff anymore. Let's import React from React. Let's import React DOM. From React DOM. And we're just gonna say function root, or let's call it app, function app. We'll go with like the convention that Create React App uses. We're going to return a hello Rahat codes viewers. Okay, and we're going to do React DOM.render. And this app function, that's basically a functional component that returns a component called app. And we're going to do document.get element by ID root. Cool. Yeah, I really, really love Create React App right now. So when we do this call to React DOM render, it's going to like look for an HTML element that has an ID of root. So we need to actually make sure we have an HTML element with the ID of root, a div with the ID of root rather. So we can take this out of here. We don't need this anymore. And we're just going to set up a div ID equals root. And yeah, this is again basically what you get when you install Create React App. All of this is done for you. But it's good to know what's actually happening under the hood. And that should be it. VM run dev server. Let's head over to Google Chrome. Hey, we got React. And just to prove that it is React, we can add some more components into this. I'm not going to create like the Pokedex get. I think on a different stream, we'll add Express and hit the Pokemon API to actually do that. But, or no, I wanted to do that in React Native. Yeah. Okay. We'll just keep this simple. So let's do a new file. We'll call it a new folder, components. Inside of components, we'll have a Pokemon.js file. Import React from React. That's all we need in here. Const. I don't know, const Charmander. Let's just do Pokemon. Const Pokemon equals. We're going to do structure out the name, Pokemon name. So I'm going to have to pass this down as a prop. And we don't need this. And it's just going to have a paragraph with the name of the Pokemon in there. Let's make sure we export default out that Pokemon. Now, let's import that component. Import Pokemon from dot slash. We don't need to go dot slash. We just do dot slash components slash Pokemon. And instead of returning this H1, or we could still return that H1. We'll return some stuff. I'm going to wrap everything in a div so it doesn't yell at us. When you have like a bunch of JSX elements together. Rahat codes a Pokédex kind of, sort of. I will eventually. And we're going to also use that Pokemon component we made, and it's going to have a Pokemon name. So we're going to say Pokemon name equals, and we'll say it's Charmander or Charizard. Compiled successfully. Hey, Charizard's here. Kind of. Cool. So we just created a React application from scratch. Has of the has a couple of the features from Create React App. Live reload, hot reloading, ability to use components and things like that. I think when I build up on this, I'll probably just be sticking to functional components. But if you wanted to also like use class components, there's like a few more plugins you'd have to install if you wanted to write it the same way you would write it in a Create React app. But we won't go into that in too big detail. I think this is a good place to stop for the stream for today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Ryan, for joining in. Yeah, this is how kind of like how you would create a React app from scratch using Webpack. I much prefer either using Parcel or just a Create React app. Just I don't want to do this like ever again. It was a lot, but it works, and this is how you do it. So thank you all for watching. I'm also making a quick announcement. I shared out a thing I did over the weekend of like some authentication things. So basically, I have like a GraphQL API, added some authentication to it, and tried to, from my understanding of things, do it in the most secure way possible using JSON Web Tokens. I know some people say that it's not very secure, but it's all saved in like HTTP only cookies and things like that. Originally, I was going to do that on a stream. I'm not going to do that on a stream. I'm actually going to record my first like planned out tutorial rather than me just flailing around live. Hopefully, that will be like a bit more structured. We'll go through and take a look at adding authentication with a GraphQL to a React app. And like the way I set it up, I'm pretty sure you can like drop that into like Angular view with a few changes. I'm not too familiar with those, but with most, it should work with pretty much any front end that can connect with Express, which is like anything. Cool. So thank you all for watching. I'm going to be working on that. I'll make an announcement when that's done. It'll be a pretty short tutorial, probably not too short. Probably be like 45-minute tutorial, somewhere in that range. And I'm also going to be hopefully working on like a talk associated to that. And we'll see how that goes. So thank you very much for tuning in to episode 8, the first one of 2020. And see you next week. Bye.